I once asked a million people on Facebook to find me a boyfriend. I went on the Steve Harvey show hoping to meet someone. I spent years cycling on and off dating apps, convinced that if I just tried harder, love would finally happen for me. But surprise, surprise, none of it worked. And then I met the love of my life here, in my building's laundry room. But I don't think meeting him was the magic moment. What made our relationship work had everything to do with who I had become. Hey, if you're new here, I'm Ione. I'm an actress and I make uplifting content to help lift you up and find a bit of peace in this chaotic world. For most of my life, I thought that I might be single forever and that maybe a relationship just wasn't on the cards for me. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. So whether you've been actively dating and exhausted by it, or you've kind of just given up, or you're curious about what the research actually says about finding lasting love, this video is for you. If you find this kind of information helpful, consider subscribing. I post videos every Monday to help you feel better and guided meditations every Tuesday. So, what was my journey to finding love? Well, growing up, I was pretty lonely. I struggled with depression. I believed I was really ugly. I carried a lot of shame about my body. I had issues with eating. None of this exactly made me feel like a catch. As I got older, I started finding some success in my career, and I thought that I could apply that same attitude to finding love. Basically, that if I worked hard enough at it, I'd meet someone. So I treated dating like a project. I'd go through phases where I'd get on the apps, swipe like my life depended on it. I'd meet some guys, then feel disappointed when nothing clicked, get disheartened, delete everything. Then a few months later, I'd convince myself that I just needed to try harder and I'd start the whole cycle again. I even did some pretty extreme things. I literally put it out to my Facebook community of over 1 million people asking them to help me find a boyfriend, which is bold, but it was really overwhelming. And it was impossible to manage. It was a terrible idea. I was getting messages from all over the world. And logistically, I wasn't going to fly to another country to meet somebody. It was a bad idea. Then there was the Steve Harvey show. I was a guest for their dating segment. And while I was paid to be there, I genuinely thought that maybe something would come of it. I picked someone. I reached out after the show to meet up for a coffee, and he never replied. I now know where I was going wrong. I was trying too hard, hoping that finding someone would finally make me feel okay about myself. So what's actually going on when we search for love? And why does it feel so hard for so many of us? Biological anthropologist Dr. Helen Fisher has studied what happens in our brains when we fall in love, and she found that romantic love is as basic to human survival as hunger or thirst. Her research using brain scans identified 3 systems that work together when we pair up with someone: lust, attraction, and attachment. Each one is driven by different chemicals and serves a different purpose. Lust is about seeking connection broadly. It's driven by hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Attraction is that obsessive, can't stop thinking about them phase, fueled by dopamine and norepinephrine. It's why new love feels almost like an addiction. And then there's attachment, the calm, secure bond that develops over time, driven by oxytocin and vasopressin. What's interesting is that you can feel lust for one person, attraction for another, and deep attachment to someone else entirely. The challenge of lasting love is getting these systems to align over time, moving from that dopamine rush into something more stable. But your motivation matters as well. Researchers have found that why you're looking for love predicts whether you'll actually find it. There's something called self-determination theory that looks at the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. When applied to dating, people who pursue relationships because connection itself feels meaningful and enjoyable are significantly more likely to find a partner within 6 months, compared to people looking for love to prove something or to escape loneliness. I think about my own journey here. When I was asking 1 million people to find me a boyfriend, I wasn't coming from a place of genuine openness. I was coming from a place of, there's something wrong with me and a relationship will fix it. There's also something else crucial called attachment theory. Researchers have identified 3 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant. Some researchers also refer to a 4th style called disorganized, but I'll save that for another day. Secure people, roughly half or 2/3 of the population, are comfortable with intimacy, communicate clearly, and generally make great partners. Anxious folks tend to worry about the relationship. They seek a lot of reassurance and are very sensitive to any signs of withdrawal. Avoidant people equate closeness with losing their independence and tend to pull away when things get too intimate. One of the best things you can do is honestly assess your attachment style. And if you tend towards anxious attachment, consciously seek out secure partners. So how do you actually identify someone with secure attachment? Secure people are consistent. They don't play games with texting or leaving you guessing where you stand. When they say they'll call, they call. It might feel almost boring at first, especially if you're used to the emotional roller coaster of inconsistent partners. They're comfortable talking about feelings, both theirs and yours. They don't shut down when things get emotional, but they also don't create drama. If there's a misunderstanding, they want to talk about it and work it out, rather than disappearing or escalating. They have their own life. Secure people have friendships, interests, and a sense of self that exists outside the relationship. They're not looking for you to complete them, and they're not threatened by your independence either. And here's a big one. They're kind about their exes. Not best friends necessarily, but they don't trash talk or carry obvious bitterness. How someone talks about their past relationships tells you a lot about how they handle intimacy and conflict. So what else does the research say that actually helps people find lasting love? Behavioural scientists have identified 3 common patterns that trip people up. There's the romanticizer, someone waiting for destiny, for the perfect meet cute. They need to shift toward understanding that relationships are built, not discovered. The maximizer, someone who always thinks there might be someone better around the corner, paralyzed by endless options. They need to learn to commit to someone who meets their core criteria and stop second guessing. And the hesitator, someone waiting until they're ready, until they lose the weight or get the promotion. The truth is you become ready through relationships, not before them. If you're using dating apps, research suggests treating them like an introduction service only. Keep your matches limited so you don't get overwhelmed, and move to meeting them in person within a week or 2. Extended texting creates a false sense of intimacy that often leads to disappointment. But perhaps, most importantly, where you spend your time matters. Research shows that environments like classes, volunteer groups, professional events, gyms, even coffee shops tend to produce more lasting connections than bars or clubs. These spaces allow people to see your actual personality and values over time. For me, 3 things had to shift before I was actually ready to meet someone. First, I had to work on myself. I had this fantasy that a partner would make me happy and solve all my problems, but that's not fair to put on another person. And I had to do the work, building a life I actually enjoyed before I could show up as a real partner for someone else. Second, I had to find acceptance. A friend once told me that she had surrendered to the idea that she might just be single forever. She made peace with it, and a week later, she met her husband while having ice cream on a bench. Inspired by her story, the reframe and acceptance that helped me was realizing that it's likely I'd meet someone at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe not the next, but probably some point in my lifetime. And that was enough to let go of the desperation. Third, I learned over time what I wanted in a relationship. Every person I dated, even the ones that didn't work out, taught me something about what I actually wanted. And then one day, doing laundry in my building, I met my person. We bonded over a shared love of travel. We were friends for a couple of years at first, and then we got together during COVID. 7 years later, I can be in that same spot and feel genuinely amazed at how life works. Here's what I want you to take away from all this. Love isn't something you hunt down through sheer force of will. It's something that tends to find you when you've done the work to be ready for it. That doesn't mean being passive. It means building a life you genuinely enjoy. It means showing up in places that reflect your values. It means being honest about your patterns and actively choosing differently. And it means trusting that if connection is something you want, it's available to you, even if that timeline isn't what you choose. Relationship therapist Esther Perel says love is a verb. It's not something you find and then have. It's something you choose and build every single day. If you found this video helpful, I've created a guided meditation specifically designed to help you work through some of these themes. The video will be posted on my YouTube channel tomorrow. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you next Monday.